everyone thinks $1,000 is too small to matter. Like, it's not real money, so why bother? And that exact thought, that little shrug, is the reason most people never build anything. Not because 1,000 was ever going to make them rich, because the shrug means they never start at all. So let's talk about the first 1,000. And I want to be straight with you from the jump, because this is not going to be one of those skip your coffee, live on rice, dump it all in an index fund. Congratulations, you're a millionaire at 70 videos. I'm not your financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. It's just me telling you what I actually wish I'd understood when I was sitting there with my first little pile of money, terrified to do anything with it. Drop a comment, by the way. If you had 1,000 to put somewhere right now, where's it going? I'm genuinely curious what people say. Quick ground rules first, because I'd be doing you dirty if I skip these. Before you invest a single dollar, you want a bit of a cushion sitting in cash, a few months of your actual expenses, so that the first time life punches you in the face, you're not selling everything in a panic. And if you've got high interest credit card debt, the kind charging you 20-something%, that's the fire to put out first. No investment on earth reliably beats a 25% interest rate eating you alive. Kill that first. And the last one, this money needs to be money you can leave alone for years, not next month's rent in disguise. So here's the thing. Nobody tells you about that first 1,000. The point of it is not the returns. Read that again, because it's the whole video. If you put in 1,000 and make 10% in a great year, that's $100. That is not changing your life. So if the money isn't the point, what is? The point is that the second your money is actually in there, something flips in your head. Suddenly you have skin in the game. It can go up, it can go down. And for the first time, you're not watching the game from the stands, you're actually on the field. And that shift from spectator to participant is worth more than the $100 will ever be. Let me explain why with the only example that ever made this click for me. Imagine someone who's never invested a day in their life suddenly comes into 50 grand and throws the whole thing in at once. Market has a rough year, drops 20%. They watch 50,000 become 40,000. They just lost 10 grand on paper, and they have zero experience handling that feeling. What do? They panic, they sell at the bottom, they lock in the loss and swear off investing forever. Now picture the other person, the one who slowly put in $100 at a time until they hit 1,000, watching it wiggle up and down the whole way. Same 20% drop barely registers. They've already felt small versions of it. They've built the one thing the 50 grand person never had, a stomach for it. And I'll be honest with you, I was almost the panic guy. My first real drop, I felt that little cold spike in my chest, that, oh God, is it all going away feeling. The only reason I didn't do anything dumb was that it was a small enough amount that the fear didn't fully take over. That's the gift of starting small. You get to learn what kind of person you are when the numbers turn red, while the numbers are still tiny enough that the lesson is cheap. Trust me, you want to learn that lesson on 1,000, not on 100,000. Here's the part that really gets people, though. Sitting in cash feels safe. It feels responsible, even. But it's quietly one of the riskier things you can do, because inflation is just sitting there every single day, eating it. The dollar in your pocket today buys less a year from now. Anyone who's paid rent or bought groceries the last few years already knows this in their bones. So leaving that 1,000 safe on the sidelines isn't actually safe. It's a slow leak you've decided not to look at. And I want to flip the number around so you actually feel it. That 1,000 isn't 1,000. Given enough time, given a couple of decades, that same 1,000 could quietly turn into something many times bigger. So it was never really about the money you have today. It's about the time attached to it. And time is the one thing you have a freakish, unfair amount of right now that you will never have this much of again. Someone who starts at 20 has an advantage over someone who starts at 30 that is almost impossible to put into words. Not because they're smarter, just because they started 10 years sooner and let the snowball roll. Now, what would I actually do with it in spirit? Keep it boring? I know boring is the least exciting word in the language when you're young and you want to turn 500 into 10,000 by Friday. But boring, in investing, is usually the thing that quietly works while the exciting stuff blows people up. The flashy move, the meme stock your cousin won't shut up about, the options play that's guaranteed, the day trading guru who somehow always has a course to sell you. Ask yourself one question about that last one. When's the last time you saw a day trader who got rich from trading instead of from selling you a course on trading? Right. That tells you everything. And when people talk about boring, what they usually mean is a broad index fund. It's something like an S&P 500 ETF, where you're not betting on one company, you're basically buying a tiny slice of 500 of them at once. Yeah, people throw around tickers like VOO or VTI for this, and the whole appeal is that it's almost aggressively unexciting. No genius stock picking, no staring at charts at 2 a.m., just a big boring basket that has historically ground upward over long stretches of time. I'm not telling you to buy that specific thing. I know I'm not your advisor, and I have no idea what your life looks like. I'm just saying that when you hear someone say, keep it simple, this dull little basket is usually the shape that simple takes. And some people split it, leaving most of it in that broad, boring basket and putting a smaller slice into something a bit more growth-leaning. Just enough to stay interested so they don't get bored and do something stupid. The detail isn't the point. The point is it's calm, it's simple, and you actually understand what you own. And look, what I would not do is even more important than what I would. I would not touch options when I'm starting out. I get the fantasy, turn 500 into 10 grand overnight. I understand why the brain wants that. But for almost everyone starting out, that's just gambling, wearing a suit, and it's a fast road to losing the little bit you scrape together and quitting in disgust. Same energy with chasing whatever's hot this week. The whole point of the first 1,000 is to learn the boring fundamentals while the stakes are low, not to scale up your mistakes, because that's really what bad habits do. If you start out with a broken approach, panic selling, chasing hype, jumping in and out, then the more money you eventually get, the bigger those mistakes get too. You're not building wealth, you're just building a more expensive version of the same bad reflexes. A simple, boring approach you actually stick to beats a clever one you abandon every time the market dips. Every time. There's a psychology thing underneath all of this that I think about a lot. Losing money hurts way, way more than making the same amount feels good. If 10 grand doubles, you feel great for an afternoon. If 10 grand gets cut in half, that pain lives in you for months. That imbalance is exactly why people make their worst decisions when they're scared instead of thinking. So if you can stay calm and rational with 1,000 on the line, you're literally training the muscle you'll need when the numbers get serious. You're rehearsing the calm while calm is cheap. And honestly, the first 1,000 is harder than the next 9, and it's not close, not because of the math, because of the starting. I still remember hitting my first one. I'm pretty sure that before that, I had never even held on to $1,000 in my life. Every time I got close, I'd find something to spend it on, and it'd melt right back down. So actually getting it invested and leaving it there felt like a genuinely different version of me. And the funny part, once it was in, the next milestone suddenly didn't feel so far away. You're already a chunk of the way to the next one. It almost motivates itself once it's rolling. You don't need 20 grand to start. You don't need 10. $100 a month for 10 months, and there's your 1,000. That's about 25 a week. The amount is genuinely not the point. The starting is the point. And you do not figure out your own risk tolerance, your own temperament, your own reaction to a red screen by watching 100 videos about it, including this one. You only find out by having a little real money in the game and living through a few of the swings yourself. So here's the whole thing in one breath. The first 1,000 isn't about getting rich. It's about turning yourself from someone who watches into someone who plays. It's about feeling a drop while it's small enough to survive, learning you don't actually fall apart, and building the patience that the bigger numbers will demand later. Your first one won't be perfect. Mine wasn't. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to get you off the sidelines because the people who never start aren't safe. They're just permanently spectators with a really good list of excuses. That's where my head's at on it. Tell me down below. Have you put your first 1,000 in yet? Or is something holding you back? And if you have, what's the thing you wish you'd known before you did? I'm right here with you on this one.